Welcome to the UP Theater's Playwrights Roundtable. Today we're going to talk with wonderful playwrights that have been a part of our season this year. And we're going to chat about how do they begin their work and what is the process of being a playwright to them. So we have three wonderful playwrights here. We have E.M. Lewis, we have Paolo Cassara, and we have A.M. Blank joining us today. How do you like to begin your work as a writer? And E.M., how about we start with you?
Sure, and you can call me Ellen.
Great, I'll call you Ellen.
Well, I think plays always begin with big questions for me, is things that are bothering me, making me angry, upsetting me, sometimes delighting me too, but things that big questions that I'm grappling with become plays in my world. Questions that I can't answer by myself, I rely upon my characters to help me figure out.
I think I'd have to agree. I think the easiest place to start is a big question like that, especially the things that delight me or that concern me. And I tend to amplify those situations as they've happened in my life and turn them into these occurrences that I need to explore in order to figure out like what the answer is or where it's going. And having characters that do that helps me figure out what that big question and that scary answer is.
See, that's fascinating because I can't find the question until I'm like 5 drafts deep. Like my process is, it's always like daydreaming and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting scenario / character, there's something there. And then I sit behind my computer for an insane amount of hours. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I could turn this into a thing. And then I'm like midway through this is actually becoming like a real project that I'm dedicating time to. I'm like, this is talking about something. What is it? And oftentimes I don't know until I have even more collaborators in the room. So that's fascinating that y'all start like inverted to me. That's really cool.
Yeah, that is interesting. Because I think there is a tendency to kind of start with questions, but I think it's super fascinating to start almost from like ideas, dreams, like collections of them. So I like that a lot too. I think that's interesting.
The question is intimidating to me. I think I get in my own head too much. Because if I'm like, I'm writing a play about grief or like death or whatever, then I'm like, okay. And then the perfectionism kicks in and I'm like, there's nothing I can say about this that would be in any way meaningful.
Or the burden of writing the perfect play about death, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to, whoops, I accidentally wrote a piece that's
about death.
About death. Yeah.
That's a wonderful, I think, lead into my next question is whether it is You Can See All the Stars or the future ones or your most recent playwriting project. What was the spark for that? What was the impetus? What was the question that began it? Or what was the scenario that felt like you had to begin? And what made you and compelled you to put pen to paper or to put fingers to keyboard and begin?
Don't start with me because I don't know.
Would you like to start?
I can try. I think what inspired my most recent work, which is a kind of pick your own adventure piece, based I guess inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. And what inspired that was actually, I guess, me thinking about like what it meant to be in a kind of party or like a group of people who went on an adventure together. And so I was really trying to consider what inspires that and how these people end up together and what that journey looks like of them being friends or becoming more. And so I started writing that one with honestly no expectation that it was gonna become more until I brought it to peers. And then I think that gave me the chance to see what it could be. And from there I've started and been slowly piecing together a lot of different things for it, which is hard because every scene has multiple outcomes or multiple different ways of it happening. And so having to write a scene that then ends in the same place where other dialogue picks up is really challenging. And that has been, I think, perhaps the most fun part of it too, because it feels like I'm almost going along on the journey with them, because I've never done something like that before, something so like experimental, I guess, in that way. So it's been super fun to try that.
That sounds delightful.
It's so cool.
It's a challenge.
Isn't it marvelous too, like what we get to do as playwrights, how it can begin in our garrets at home, you know, with our characters whispering in our ears, but so much of the work is also collaborative.
Yes.
When we work, I have a playwriting group and I depend upon them to bring those beginning pages that are rough and I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I'm lost in the woods, but I have something, the beginnings of something, and I have people I can bring it to, and then actors, and starting to hear something and realize that there might be a story here. I started writing You Can See All the Stars because it was a commission from the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. I haven't had a whole lot of commissions, but this was a nice one. They're a wonderful group, and they were looking for something very particular, which was a play that's about things that are happening now, so very current event oriented, has a female character as the central character, because there's still a dearth of plays with female characters with agency at the center of the story, that had 6 characters or fewer, and that all of the characters were college age, because the American College Theater Festival is for college students. And I had been reading a book called Missoula that is about a rape on campus, on a college campus, and the after effects of that, what happens after. And it really affected me emotionally. It was a powerful, true story about something devastating that happened to a young woman, and how messy it was to try and find justice or peace with herself and with her community and with law enforcement and her family after that, in the aftermath of that. And that was in my mind when I received this commission. I thought, you know, this is something that is troubling to me, deeply troubling to me, and I think I want to write about it. And so that became this play.
Yeah. I still genuinely don't know. Like, about a year ago, I don't even remember what the spark was, but I was getting really into Arthurian myths, and you were there in dramaturgy. I did a whole project on Lerner and Loewe's Camelot. It was the whole thing. And then I started reading the legends and tracing back this whole wealth of stories that had been told over and over and over and over again for centuries. And it got to the point where, actually no, I do know what it is. I was watching a documentary, which was a college professor from Purdue. I wish I could remember what it was. But she was talking about the history of Arthurian legend, and she's a professor in the subject. And she was listing through the knights and giving them just one adjective to describe them. And she said, and Kay is grumpy. And I was like, pause. Who is that? Tell me more. You have my attention. And so I think that is what started digging into this character that I didn't really know, and tracing it back and finding that in early Welsh myths he has fire powers, and he can hold his breath for 9 days, and he never tires, and he's a super cool, like, almost a demigod with like this set of skills that he has, and then going from that earliest thing into modern day where he's not there anymore. I was like, that's really interesting. And also there's a character shift that happens, especially with like, he never really loses like the assholeness, but it gets changed in like that he's sarcastic and like a really strong warrior with like a sharp tongue in the beginning, and then it changes into like he's cruel for the sake of cruelty, or like as a foil to Arthur's kindness, and it keeps getting distorted. Especially, I have beef with Chrétien de Troyes about specifically Ivan, the Knight of the Lion, and that story. But yeah, no, I'll just go into like 1 million years of talking about this. But like I was so fascinated by this character and the way that history had been retelling this story, and including Arthur and Kay or Kai, and the way that it was like changing. And I just wanted to like, I was also really fascinated by King Arthur in general, of like this mythical guy who then dies, and I was really curious about what happens after. And I think a few of the earlier drafts were like coming back home from like directly after that battle, and then the knights telling stories of Arthur like retroactively. Yeah, something in there. I was like, I gotta chase this guy down, and I gotta make something out of this, because it's, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. My next question is about what your role in the theater making process is. What do you feel your artistry contributes to the process as a playwright? There's a long tradition of playwrights being considered the primary artists, and a lot of times they're considered like, you know, there's a primacy of them a lot of times in theater making, where it's like, what did the playwright want, and trying to figure out what the playwright's intention is about the work. And so I'm curious about how you see the role of playwrights kind of broadly, but also how do you see the role of yourself as a playwright in the work, and are those two things aligned, or are those two things different?
I think I see myself as like offering the container. I think that's borrowed words from you, but like the words that I put on the page aren't the be-all end-all. I think I see them as just the start. Like it's an offering of an opportunity of like, here's this thing that I made. It's not finished yet because I can't finish it on my own. So here's the beginning of a thing, and I'm handing it off to you to take it and then add your piece to it. And it, like, I really don't like the playwright is God type mentality to it, because I genuinely don't know anything about the play when I'm writing it. And it's only after other people talk about it where I'm like, wait, yeah, that is, like, it's this, like, it's this weird, everything is hidden from me, even though I'm the one, like, typing out the words. So it's really just, I'm the one, like, just pushing the domino first. And then it's up to everybody else to keep the chain going. And if that means like ignore this stage direction, or like maybe this line always gets flubbed and the actor is gonna say it a different way, then actually that's better, and I prefer that because it's not just mine. Does that make sense?
I love what you're saying there, because you know, we're not novelists, we're not poets.
Yeah.
I love those art forms, but we are doing something different here, right? We're doing something that is deeply and purposely collaborative. And we like to play with others, or we wouldn't be in the theater. So, you know, my favorite times are both when I'm, you know, alone in my room, kind of with my characters. I love that part where it's me and the blank page, and just like, you know, writing little bits of dialogue on sticky notes and sticking them to my walls. You know, I was like, I don't know what this is, where this is going to take me, or what this is about yet, but I'm going to write it down and see, and maybe another piece will come in. But I also love that what I'm making is ultimately going to be bigger and better than anything that I could make myself, because it includes the art of all of these other people. And there's nothing more magnificent than walking into the theater and saying, oh, they're welding my set. Oh, they're sewing my costumes. They're like, oh, they're saying my words, but they're now their words too, because they are speaking them in a way that only that actor can say them, and bringing their own self and history and psychology and craft and artistry to it. And it's beautiful and exciting that it's bigger than me.
It's also such a relief to like push it away from myself and be like, it's not just mine. It could never be just mine. Please take it away from me before I, like, if I sit too long with it, it will wrap back around into something that means nothing. So it's like, it's taking my hands off of the buttons, the buttons that make things, make bad art button, as if that exists. But like
the make bad art button.
You know, you've seen it on your, that's on you guys' keyboards, right?
The big red one.
What about you, Paolo?
Well, I would have to agree with that. I feel like I think of myself as a collaborator, and in many ways, I feel like I am just a piece of the thing that helps the seed grow in that way. So perhaps the water or the soil that you planted in, like I just feel like I give them words, and I'm like, to see the growth that they do outside of it, to like push it away and do that, that's, I think, the best part of making art, making plays, is just seeing how much more it can be outside of my hands. And because, like you were saying, that individual actor, that individual director, that individual like costumer, like seeing how they interpret things, I'm like, there's so many things I could have never imagined on my own. And now being able to share that and seeing the collaboration is, I think, a miracle and a spectacle in its own.
It's so much cooler.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, tough question. Whether it was on this project or not, or like maybe part of your whole career, when was a moment when you doubted yourself the most in the writing process? Or is there always a moment when you doubt yourself the most? Or is there, what role does doubt play in your process, or has it played in your process as a playwright?
I think for me, it has to be like the halfway point of writing something. There's always like a point I reach in the middle of starting a project where I'm like, this can't be anything. This isn't going to be anything. I don't even know where I'm going with this or how I'm supposed to end it. And I think that perhaps comes from the fact that I like to write outlines. I like to do like little mini drafts where I see where it's going. So by the time I get halfway through, I'm like, how can I wrap it up so neatly, so concisely to make the story that I want to, that I set out to make? And so I hit the midway point and I'm like, I leave it in a bad way for a few months or a few weeks until I feel like I can pick it up again, or until I share with other peers and colleagues that can help actually get it back on its feet. So
I feel like if I'm not totally lost in the woods at some point, I'm not asking a big enough question. So, also, I'm not a person who knows where the play is going when I start the play, so I'm not an outliner. I think
That's it.
all writers are either one way or the other. Not the one's better than the other in any way. It's just that's our style of writing. But I'm like, ask the question and then see where the characters are trying to take me. That means that, you know, we all could be lost for a good while before we figure out where we're trying to get to by the end of things. And it takes courage, I think, to allow yourself to be lost, to understand that this is not just about the product, but the process, and that it can all be bigger if we don't go in knowing everything and just executing that. It wouldn't be art that way. It would be just like writing an essay to convince somebody of something, as opposed to making art, which is like exploring things that don't have easy answers.
Yeah, exactly. I think I should also add, at that halfway point, the project always changes. It never is what it set out to be, and I think that's perhaps for the best. I think being able to explore that with the characters and being able to set forth something new is so much more like enticing, and that's, I think, where the real art comes in.
It starts to
Exactly.
transform and become.
When you hit that moment of uncertainty,
Yeah.
the terror of the uncertainty and the doubt that comes with the uncertainty, but also the possibility that comes with the uncertainty of like, now we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Where might this go that we didn't expect or plan? And where that could be so much more brilliant and exciting than what we had planned. What about you, Am?
I don't think there's any point in the process where I don't have doubt, which might say more about me than it does about the playwriting process. But like, it wouldn't be writing if I didn't have the doubt, and it wouldn't be like I think that's how I know that there is something there, because if I care enough about it to have strong feelings about it and be like, actually, is this anything? Like, that means that I'm curious enough about it to keep going. But yeah, like, when it's just a pile of words, I think is when I feel it most acutely, because I'll get to like, I've got 50 pages and none of it means anything. And then I'm like, well, what am I even doing here? Why don't I just go do something easier, like start a whole other play, because I don't know what this is and it's a mess and it's gonna take a lot of work to untangle it, and like I don't know what's going on, and I just flip the table and leave. That's my instinct, at least. Yeah, it's like it's a constant shadow of every aspect of it, and yeah, having I think the pile of words is where I feel it the most. Like, I've spent a significant amount of time on it, and then I read it, and I've spent too much time with it, so I can't see the forest for the trees, and I'm like, no, there's nothing here. It's just letters at this point. And then I have to, that's when I send it off, and I'm like, hey, can you be nice and tell me that it's actually good? Like, yeah, that's the point where I'm like, hey, friends.
I love it.
I want to look at it, but like,
there it is.
there's something there, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
next question.
Sure.
I would love to know, I'd love you to say the title of your play and tell me the story about how you decided that those words were going to be in the title. When did the title emerge for you?
Awesome. So the title of my most recent one is "The Party Goes on a Quest to Save the King That Is Totally Not Evil and Ends Up Saving the Realm." A long title for a long play. I think. Wait, what was the question?
Well, tell me the story about how that became the title.
Okay. That initially the title was just, I guess, a code name of the play with a really long title, and I knew that it was going to be a long title because I was thinking a lot about like Dungeons and Dragons and different campaigns that I know exist or that I've done myself, and I wanted to, I guess, make a title that said what the story was, but also I think undermines what your initial thoughts are, like when you hear that, if that makes sense. So the whole like emphasis on the king that is totally not evil. Well, I don't know if I should give spoilers, but I think the point is that you might think that he then is evil, or that he has some kind of weird master plan to undermine the heroes in the end, and then doesn't end up doing that. And so that, I think, it's supposed to be a fun little play on words of like what it might be like to go on a quest with the party. So, yeah.
I love it. Am?
I'm trying to sort through. It's had so many titles because it's been so many different plays. I think with this one in particular, I've been very much riffing off of Arthurian titles that already exist. There's it's called The Future Once, which is a play on T.H. White's The Once and Future. King? Is King in there? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think with this version of Arthurian stuff that I'm playing with, it plays a lot with memory and time, and I actually have like a notepad like document in my computer that's just like variations of inverting the Once and Future King with like different ways that you could sort those words and like what the different meanings. Like I think one of it is like once the future, once the past. There's so many of them. But I think I landed on it because it's the simplicity of it, the future once, and it's also kind of like there's a lot of repetition of time in the play, and I personally think it's funny to say the future once and then do the past over and 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 over again. Yeah, I really like to amuse myself with titles. And yeah, kind of like paying homage to the stories that have come before, but also twisting it. Also, like, I play with audience, or I try to play with audience expectations and like knowledge of Arthurian myth and like the canon that's come before. So flipping it around and like switching things is like a little nod to that. I'm playing with it. I'm being cute and fun.
Well, my play is called You Can See All the Stars. I love your titles, both of you. I think they should always amuse and delight us, and make the audience lean in. What is that about? If a title can do those things, then we're golden, right? It brings them in the door, because that's the first part of the play that anybody encounters is the title. You Can See All the Stars came out of the first scenes of the play. One of the characters, the roommate of the main character, is taking an astronomy class, and she doesn't think she's going to be very good at science at all, but you know how it is, undergrad, you take a bunch of stuff, and some of it you end up surprisingly liking. And she surprisingly falls in love with astronomy, and her aunt gives her a telescope, which she puts up on the roof of the building, Bromley Hall, and that becomes a place where some of the scenes of the play happen, but it also sort of expands into metaphor a little bit, because there are things that are far away that you're seeing close up, and there's also a lot of darkness, and there's also up there on the roof of the building the dangerous edge of things, and the characters explore all of that. So there's a phrase that she uses, you can see all the stars from the roof of Bromley Hall. And I thought, I feel like that's my title. It's not the play, but it kind of is the play.
Mhm.
So,
What is the most important lesson that you think you have learned about playwriting? And whether that's a lesson that you had to learn yourself, or whether that's a lesson that was imparted to you that you really took to heart, what is the lesson that you hold dear, or that you have earned that lesson, or you've learned that lesson and you carry it with you today?
Okay, I'll
Sorry.
shoot. I think one of the hardest lessons I've learned, it kind of has to go with when I reach that midpoint and the project ends up changing. I think it's like letting go of those darlings sometimes, especially because the play is always transforming, always changing, always becoming something new. There's a point in which I'm like, ooh, maybe that doesn't serve the play anymore. And even though I loved writing it, even though I thought it was like a great piece, I'm like, I realized I need to take it out of it, maybe fill it with something else. And at the same time that piece can be a start of another piece. So it's not so much killing the darlings. I don't know if I like that phrase as much, because then it implies that they are going away. And so I like letting them go so that I can find them for another piece at a different time. So I think that's kind of the hardest lesson I've learned. It's just how to let those go and how to keep going.
kind of the same is to trust myself and to trust the process are difficult when you are feeling lost. And there are great chunks of time when I feel lost and like I can't pull all the pieces together that I have put in. It's like I have this piece and that piece and the other piece, and how are these? I feel that they're connected, but how do I connect them? How do I weave them together? And I'll never do it, and I feel it's kind of crushing when you can't figure it out. I think I have a bit of perfectionist in me as well. It's like, which this is a tough business for a perfectionist.
Yeah.
It's like it's never going to be perfect. It might be grand, it might be amazing, but it's never going to be perfect because it is a pieced together thing that you're making. And so just to say, I don't have to do this minute, you know, it will come. It will come. Have faith. Take a walk. Go sit by the creek for a while. Give it a little time. Read a poem. Talk to a friend. Come back to it. And subconsciously, things will start to work in my head when I'm sleeping, when I'm taking a walk. Because I know the play never leaves me when I'm really working on it. It's like, boy, I'm in it. I'm in it with my play until I get to the other side. And so just to trust that it will happen when the time is right, and to keep the faith.
There's so many, but I think one of the more prevalent ones is write things you can throw away, literally. I was really stuck at the beginning of the process, like the beginning. I had really bad writer's block at the September, October, to the point where I couldn't even open a plain text file on my computer without feeling like, this sucks, I'm gonna go quit school, see you never, goodbye. And I was like, I can't write anything, and that sucks. And something, again, Dr. Cross told me, she was like, okay, here's what you're gonna do. You're going to get an actual physical notebook. You are going to write for 15 minutes, and then you are going to tear that page out, you are going to crumple it in a ball and throw it away. And I hated that. But getting out of the perfectionist, everything that I write must be sacred and perfect and part of this thing. I think especially because I had decided that I was doing a playwriting capstone. And so it was everything that I write, I gotta make a decision. And this has to be this big old project that's
so
like
much pressure.
so good and like amazing and like my last hurrah, but like really, like not even darlings to kill, but like literally writing for the sake of writing and like finding the joy in it and the impermanence of it, because it, for me, it often feels like as soon as I put pen to paper, it's already like leaving my grasp and somebody, like it's already going to somebody else to deal with, and then I'm like, no, it's not done, give it back. But yeah, like literally throw it away and find things, just like keep the practice and don't put the pressure on it, because it will, if you stop like hounding it under a microscope, it will start to grow and like sneak up on you accidentally. Like it won't reveal itself if you're like staring at it, like trying to laser the sun through a magnifying glass at it. Like,
Yeah.
just set it on fire. See what happens.
I like that though.
If I wasn't living in the dorms, fire would have been involved.
Thank you for not burning down the University of Portland.
You are so welcome.
Okay, final question that I'd love to ask you all, and one that we've been asking all of our artists in these roundtables, is what is a ritual that you have that helps set you up to do this work? Is there, what is the thing, or what are the things that, the habits that you have that you're like, I do this and then I begin? And, you know?
I make playlists. I don't know that, like, it's not every single time, but with this project, I specifically make playlists that are songs that are not in English and that fit the vibe. And so, like, for example, this one was a lot of French indie rock, and also, oh my god, there's a French Arthurian musical that I love so much. It's so good. But like those songs and things that inspire me to put it on in the background, and like I think music is a big part of my, like, I'm putting on this playlist, and for the time that it is running, I'm writing the thing, and I'm like, I'm in the headspace, I'm living in this world. This is where I am for the next hour or so.
Yeah.
I kind of have to agree. I don't make specific playlists, or at least specific ones with like songs in mind, but I make them more with like, I guess, vibes in mind. I think that helps me kind of like with the tone and the vibe of the piece itself. But I also really like to, it seems a little wasteful, to like invest in a new notebook or something. So that way it's like a fresh start. So then I'll be able to like put the notebook down and see something blank, kind of like looking at like a blank computer screen or a blank document. But this way it's like tangible. And even if I can just rip it out and throw it away, it still gives like a good starting point where I'm like, there's so much room to grow in that book. There's so much to do, so much exploring to be had. And I think that's my favorite ritual, because I always like to color code things and do things like that, especially with different projects, meaning different colors. That's really just like a thing inside my own head, but it helps to kind of like differentiate it this way. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go work on my red one today, or my green notebook, or my yellow notebook, and I'll have playlists that kind of correspond with that have like the hearts in them, so that I know which colors they go to. So that's my favorite ritual. It helps me kind of, especially work on different projects at once, which might not be the best of practice, but I think always is fun. It lets me feel like I have room to explore.
I have a very busy head too, so I
Yeah.
always have a couple ways
Exactly.
cooking at the same time. I think it's good too, because it helps me keep from feeling stuck. Because it's like, I might pause on one thing because I don't know how to move forward, but I can just shift over to another one and keep writing on that, and I can shift over and do a little bit on that,
Yeah.
10-minute play or a song lyric, and so I'm, always be writing, like that feeling of generation, of not stuckness.
Exactly.
I love how both of you keep your rituals help you keep living in the world of your play, and I think mine is similar, but visual. A couple of plays ago, I was very stuck. I was like, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm so lost. And so I just started putting pieces of the play up on my wall.
Yes.
And a little tape, and the characters' names, and a little quote. And, there was a little picture of a butterfly that went along with that particular play, But and I've continued that and expanded that as part of my process. I've even put a big whiteboard in my office, my working office, that it's both magnetic and I can tape stuff to it. And so I can have a look, and then it expands beyond that into the doors and the walls. By the time, I look like a crazy person by the time I'm done with the play. But
solving a murder mystery, cold case.
Yes, the cold case of my play.
Uh-huh.
But it helps because I can always glance up and say, oh, I can put, what am I doing here? It's something I'm thinking, but I can literally write it up on my whiteboard. Like, what are the story engines? Where is this character going? And you can start to have enough room, both across but also up and down, to have the depth and breadth of what you're exploring. And it's also fun. It's like, oh, this is my world. It's very hard to take them down. I just finished a play, and I'm loath to take my wall down because it's special to me. The construction of it over time has become a delight.
Well, I hope you're learning how to document those and putting them all into scrapbooks
Well, I
to
do take
put them
pictures.
all into a space to continue.
I gotta second that. My dorm looks insane.
Mhm.
I also have pieces of paper. I love my little corkboard where I put all my ideas. There was one night where I was like, I have so many projects that I want to work on, and they can't all live in my head. So I have a corkboard that just has so many Post-it notes, just like stapled to it in rows. And I actually can't wait to take this one off of it. I'm really excited to do that.
That you've done it.
Yeah.
You've told the story.
Yeah. But the whiteboards and seeing it all laid out, surrounding you. I love that. Yeah.
No, I think that's why I like the notebooks, because it's like having that tangible world where that thing lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I might adopt that idea of putting it all over the wall.
Dude,
because
it's so fun.
sometimes I'm like, wait, where am I looking right now? So I
You
like
can
that.
have both. You can have
Exactly.
the notebook and
And
Writing on the windows because I ran out of. I don't have a whiteboard in my room, so it's mirrors and windows. Yeah.
What a fun thing. How lucky we are to be playwrights.
I know.
and how lucky we are to get to chat today and to benefit from the work of your artistry. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. It's been our pleasure to have you, and we're excited to see what you all write next.
Thank you.